I still remember the thrill of unlocking the door to apartment 313 for the first time. The rent was a steal, a price that made you ignore the slightly musty smell and the ancient, rumbling air conditioner. It was my first place, all mine. For the first week, it was perfect. I painted the walls a cheerful yellow, bought a second-hand couch, and felt like I was finally starting my real life. Then came the whispers. It started subtly, a faint murmur from the air vent above my bed, just as I was drifting off to sleep. I dismissed it as the old building settling, or maybe my neighbors talking, but the next night, it was clearer. It sounded like me. A hushed, distorted version of my own voice. I sat bolt upright, my heart hammering. "Don't forget to call Mom," the voice whispered. I froze. I hadn't thought about calling my mom all day. It was eerie, but I brushed it off. Maybe I'd thought it subconsciously. The mind plays tricks, right? But it kept happening. Night after night, the voice would emerge from the vent, my own echo speaking thoughts I hadn't yet formed. "You should check on Sarah. She's having a bad day." The next morning, I'd get a text from my friend Sarah, apologizing for being distant because she'd been upset. "The milk is about to expire." I'd open the fridge, and sure enough, the date was tomorrow. It was like having a psychic roommate who lived in my ventilation system. The initial fear started to curdle into a strange kind of dependence. I stopped making to-do lists. I didn't need to. The voice would remind me of everything. Appointments, birthdays, grocery items. It was incredibly efficient. It even started giving me creative ideas from my work as a graphic designer. "Try a serif font for the Henderson project," it would murmur. And damn it, it was right. The client loved it. I was becoming more successful, more organized, all thanks to the ghost in my book. I started calling it Echo. It felt less scary that way. Echo was my secret, my advantage. One night, the tone shifted. I was lying in bed, feeling pretty good about a new client I'd landed. Thanks to a tip from Echo, of course. The usual whisper started, but this time it was laced with something new, a cold, sharp edge of anxiety. "He's not who he says he is," Echo whispered, referring to my new boyfriend, Mark. I frowned. Mark was wonderful. He was kind, funny, and we'd just had an amazing date. "Don't trust him," the voice insisted, more forcefully than ever before. A shiver traced its way down my spine. This wasn't a reminder to buy milk. This was a warning. I tried to ignore it. I told myself I was being paranoid. That maybe the stress was getting to me and twisting the voice into something negative. But Echo was relentless, every night. It was the same message. "He's hiding something. Look in his car. Ask him about his old job." The whispers became a torment, poisoning my thoughts about Mark. I started becoming distant and suspicious. I'd question him about little things, trying to catch him in a lie, but he was always open and honest. My relationship, which had been so full of light, was now shrouded in a fog of doubt, sung by a voice in a vent. I started to resent Echo. My helpful ghost had become a paranoid puppeteer, pulling my strings with whispers of fear. I couldn't sleep. The constant murmuring drove me crazy. I tried everything to block it out. I stuffed pillows into the vent. I played loud music all night. I even slept on the couch in the living room. But I could still hear it, a faint, insistent whisper seeping through the walls, through the music. "You need to leave him. He's dangerous." The breaking point came one rainy Tuesday. I hadn't slept in what felt like days. I was a wreck, and Mark was worried. He came over with soup and my favorite movie, his face etched with concern. As he was hanging up his coat, Echo's voice hissed from the vent, louder and clearer than ever before. "Look in his coat pocket." Now, my hands were shaking. I felt like a puppet, completely out of my own control. While Mark was in the kitchen, I walked over to his coat, my heart pounding in my ears. I reached into the pocket, my fingers closing around a small, hard object. It was a key I didn't recognize. And attached to it was a keychain from a town Mark had told me he'd never even visited. When he came back into the room, I was just standing there, holding the key. The look on his face said everything, the surprise, the flicker of fear, then the resignation. He confessed he had a whole other life, another relationship in that other town. Everything he told me was a carefully constructed lie. Echo had been right about everything. After he left, the apartment was silent. I stood in the middle of the room, the quiet ringing in my ears. The sense of relief was quickly replaced by a chilling realization. That night, for the first time in months, the vent was silent. There were no whispers, no reminders, no warnings. Just the low hum of the old building. The silence was deafening. I lay in bed, wide awake, waiting, but Echo was gone. I had my life back, my thoughts were my own again. But a new, terrifying thought began to form, not from the vent, but from deep inside my own mind. Echo only spoke of things I hadn't thought of ***. It was my own voice, from the future, reaching back to guide me. All those warnings, all those reminders, they were from a future me who had already lived through the consequences. The voice wasn't a ghost in the machine. It was me. A future me, trapped in a loop, forever whispering warnings back to my past self through the vents of apartment 313. The silence was enter release. It was a sentence. Because now, it was my turn to start whispering.